Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be looking at another band that I've never heard of before. They popped up in my YouTube suggested videos a little while ago, and there was something in the title that piqued my interest, so I thought, you know what, I'll give it a look. But then I thought, you know what, I'll hold on to it and I'll do a reaction video to it. So we're going to be looking at a band called 1914. I had no idea who they were, so I had to try and do a little bit of, research on them, find out as much as I could about them, and it was very hard to find any information about the band. And the only information I could find comes from Encyclopedia Metalum, which, as I've mentioned before and has been pointed out by viewers in previous videos, their information can sometimes be horrendously inaccurate, let's say. But what I found was 1914 are a Ukrainian Black and Death / Doom band that formed in 2014 on the 100th anniversary of the First World War. The band's existence is a homage to all that fell during fighting of the Great War, World War I. Unsurprisingly, their lyrical themes revolve around World War I, trench warfare, mustard gas attacks, violence, shell shock, that sort of thing. All of their music seems to revolve around the First World War, warfare, and the effects thereof. Now, to this date, they have released 4 singles, 1 split EP, 1 of their own EPs. They've appeared on 1 compilation, and they've released 2 full-length albums, with a 3rd due out on October 22nd, an album called Where Fear and Weapons Meet, which is where the track we're going to look at today comes from. It's a track called And a Cross Now Marks His Place, featuring Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost. At least I'm assuming that's the Nick Holmes that's in this track. But it said featuring Nick Holmes, and that's the one thing that caught my eye. I was like, oh, that could be interesting, because I love Paradise Lost. They were the first band I ever saw live. I enjoy their music. I covered another track with him as a guest vocalist on before as well. So I'm intrigued. Obviously, every track this band has produced has got some deep story or meaning behind it. So I found some lyrics for this track. Again, they come from Encyclopedia Metalum, so whether or not they're accurate, I don't know. I've had a brief look over them. I haven't read too much into them, but it sounds interesting. And, with all the songs being based around the First World War and that sort of thing, I'm assuming there's going to be a deep story behind every single track. And as we all know, I really like that. But anyway, I've waffled on for long enough. We'll jump into this track and see what we've got. I'm very, very intrigued to see what this is. Oh, Jesus Christ. So, so here we go. And a Cross Now Marks His Place by 1914, featuring Nick Holmes.
successful, and our guns reached and established new position. Later in the night, the enemy shout our
he says. Well, there we go. And A Cross now marks his place by 1914, featuring Nick Holmes. Now, just before the end of the video, I decided to actually look up to see if the information within this song was actually genuine, and it turns out they actually give the information at the end of the song. But just to reiterate, the song talks about one Private A.G. Harrison, otherwise known as Arthur George Harrison, number 62732 of B Company of the 5th Machine Gun Battalion, who was killed in action on the 20th of May 1918 in Ploegsteer, Belgium, at the age of 30. His name is listed amongst the 11,460 missing on the memorial in Ploegsteer. So there you go. Now, the way that the actual lyrics of the song are done is sort of written like a letter from a commanding officer to the mother or the family of the dead soldier, which I think is actually very clever. Whether or not is actually the letter that was sent to the family, because the information I found about the private in my very brief search was actually members of the family saying that they have a copy of a letter sent from the commander to inform them of the death. So whether or not this is the actual letter sent to the family, I'm not sure, but the song is written in the form of a letter. And you know, it showed in the video the commanding officer actually writing the lyrics of the song or the letter, and it even showed it right at the end there before they gave all the information. So it's very, very interesting. I couldn't really tell which part actually was Nick Holmes, whether or not he actually did the main vocals, or there was a part where there were several voices singing at once. You know, there was the sort of growled vocals, and then there was a slightly cleaner version. I don't know whether his voice was mixed in there. I really couldn't tell, since Nick Holmes is actually quite capable of doing several different vocal styles. But anyway, the actual song, the actual lyrics go: "Dear Mother, I regret very much to inform you that your son, Private A.G. Harrison, was killed in action on the night of the 21st instant. Death was instantaneous and without any suffering. The company was taking part in an attack, and your son's gun team was one of them. Which advanced against the enemy. The attack was successful, and all guns reached and established new positions. Late in the night, the enemy shelled our lines, and one shell fell on your son's gun, killing him and wounding a comrade. It was impossible to get his remains away, and he lies in a soldier's grave where he fell. I and the CO and all the company deeply sympathize with you in your loss. Your son always did his duty, and now has given his life for his country. We all honour him, and I trust you will feel some consolation in remembering this. His number was 62732 of this company. In true sympathy, yours faithfully, War." So there were certain parts of that which were sort of repeated over and over again to sort of give the song structure, but the way that's written is amazing, and the way it says, "In true sympathy, yours faithfully, War," you know, that's pretty harsh. So I'm guessing by that last line there, that's not how the original letter itself was written, but it's still, you know, quite brutal, and you know, it tells the story of a real life person. You know, this A.G. Harrison. So, you know, it's quite an interesting concept that they've got going on here, and like I said, they've got 2 albums out already, along with a handful of singles. So Are they sort of talking about individual soldiers in each song, or are they talking about skirmishes and stuff, and they just decided to write this one specific song and chose a name out of the blue? I don't know. But it's very, very interesting. And musically, there was definitely the black and death metal / doom metal vibe and element to the music. So again, very, very interesting. But like I said, I couldn't tell where Nick Holmes sort of came into the song, whether or not he was switching between the main lead vocals with another vocalist. I'm not entirely sure. But musically, I really enjoyed it. I thought it sounded really, really good. Lyrically, it's one of those songs that sort of messes with my head a little bit, because the lyrics don't necessarily go along with the melody, but with the way that the lyrics are written and what they're trying to convey, it kind of makes sense. I'm not normally really all for that sort of song, when the lyrics and the music don't seem to work well together, but in this case it sort of makes sense. So yeah, I quite like that. I'm very interested to check out some of their other stuff. They've got 2 albums out already, and this is the first I've ever heard of the band. And given that they're talking about real life events and covering sort of important subject matter and the sort of thing that I find very, very interesting, I'm surprised I've never actually heard of them before, especially with the fact that I really enjoy my doom metal. So yes, very, very interesting. I'm going to have to go and check out some of their other material, because I find that very, very interesting. And I really, really like the fact that they are covering something real and something important. And we all know by now that I really like when music has a meaning and a story behind it. So this very, very much interests me. And I love the way they've written it in that style of a letter. It's very, very clever. Very, very clever. But I'm not sure what else I can say about it. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so by all means. You can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you can even message me through my Patreon, where of course you could help to support this channel, which would be a massive help to me, considering the fact that every piece of content I upload to this channel gets immediately demonetized, which is a bit of a pain in the backside, but it is what it is. There's an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue if you should so desire it. There's a limit on how frequently you can do that, however. It's limited to once a month, and that's just to be fair to people who suggest tracks through more regular means, people who suggest tracks through Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram comments, to give them a fair shot. And if you do suggest a track through those more regular means like Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, it could take me a while to get around to your suggestion, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day, and having taken a month off from this channel, I do have quite a backlog as well. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it should get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get around to it, I'm afraid. Also, MetalHead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose goal is to put an end to hate crime. And one of the main facets of that is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture. And that's something I believe in very, very passionately. It's something I believe in very, very strongly, because it's something that gets very widely ignored. Every single day all around the world, people from the alternative community get violently and brutally attacked just purely for the fact that they listen to alternative music. And we're not just talking about like insults being shouted across the street or getting shoulder rammed as you're walking down the road. We're talking about real violent crimes where people are getting hospitalized, sometimes with broken limbs and sometimes with even more life-threatening injuries. But no matter how frequently these things happen, they never get spoken about. Every day we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism, etc. We hear about these on a daily basis. But when it comes down to people from the alternative community getting violently attacked, not a word is said. The last time it was widely spoken about was 14 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently and brutally assaulted by a group of 5 or 6 people who beat them, kicked them, punched them, knocked them to the ground, and stamped on their heads so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive this assault. He was in a coma for around about a week and a half, maybe a bit longer, I can't remember exactly, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, she was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and was beaten to death just purely for the fact that she listened to alternative music and wore alternative clothing. Now, when this happened, this was all over the news, as rightfully it should have been. And over time, as other news stories came in, it sort of faded into the background, as you'd expect. But the thing is, in the 14 years since that happened, nothing has been said. We've not heard anything similar. But there has been hundreds, if not thousands, of similar attacks in that time, and nothing's been said. And the main reason for that is because no one's died, and that on the face of it is disgusting. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before this sort of thing gets spoken about. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die before something gets done. Every day we hear about all these other hate crimes on a daily basis, from like the most heinous and violent of these crimes where someone is murdered because of the colour of their skin, because of their religious belief, because of their sexual identity, down to the most petty and pathetic of these crimes where some entitled white woman is calling the police on a family of colour because they're having a picnic in a public space. We hear every facet of these in every type of media on a daily basis. But as soon as it comes to someone from the alternative community, it gets ignored. Nothing gets said, nothing gets done. And that's unacceptable. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is happening and that it is a really big and serious problem. They don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they had to watch their daughter slowly die over the course of 2 weeks. No one should have to be afraid to leave their house for fear of getting beaten to death just because they like different music. But this is the reality that we're living in. And the fact that people ignore this makes the people committing these crimes think that they can get away with it. And if we carry on ignoring it, it's only a matter of time before someone else loses their life. And that's just not acceptable. We cannot allow this to continue. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there's a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall plan is, what their intentions are, because they can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it be a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands, or maybe even that one, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff over on their web store. The smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Our shell fell on your son's gun, killing him and wounding Uncle Ray. It was impossible to get his remains.